Disclaimer: all testimonies shared on this channel are authentic, told by real people who have experienced them. They are shared to inspire faith, encourage repentance, and point souls back to God. Each story is personal and true to the individual who lived it.
They said I died instantly. The car flipped 3 times before crashing into the roadside barrier. But the truth is, I didn't die instantly. I saw everything. My body was still in the wreck, yet I was standing beside it, watching people scream and flashlights surround me. Then, like a rushing wind, everything turned silent. In that silence, I began to hear weeping, not from the earth, but from beyond it. A voice whispered, "Come, see what becomes of those who carried pain too long." I didn't understand until I saw them. Women, countless women, crying before a radiant light that pierced through eternity. And then, I heard his voice. He said, "These are the ones who left their pain, but never left their wounds." And with that, my journey began. Thank you so much, my brethren, for allowing God to use you to save lives. God in his infinite mercy shall reward you all. My name is Susana Matthew, a mother of 2, a believer, and a woman who thought she understood pain until that night. I had left an abusive marriage 2 years before the accident. I thought I was finally free. New job, new city, new peace. But deep inside, I still carried anger, resentment, and a question I was too afraid to ask God. Did I sin by leaving? That night, on my way home from a women's prayer meeting, rain poured so hard I could barely see the road. I remember praying, "Lord, I just want peace." Moments later, headlights blinded me, and everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer in my car. I stood between 2 realms, life and eternity, and what I was about to see would answer every hidden question I'd carried for years. When the silence around me deepened, I realized I was standing in a place that felt alive, yet not of this world. The air shimmered like golden mist, and every sound carried meaning. There was no wind, no sun, yet light seemed to flow from everywhere. Ahead of me stretched a wide plain covered in what looked like glass, yet it rippled like water beneath my feet. Then I heard it again. That sound, the weeping. It was not the cry of despair I knew on earth. This was different. It carried remorse, longing, and the weight of truths realized too late. As I turned, I saw them, a multitude of women clothed in white robes. Some knelt, trembling. Others stood with faces bowed, tears streaming down radiant cheeks. I could feel their pain as though it were my own. An angel beside me spoke softly, his voice like rushing water. "These are the ones who left their pain but not their wounds. They were freed in body, but still bound in spirit." Before I could speak, a brightness filled the atmosphere. It wasn't blinding, it was transforming. My very thoughts fell silent, and then I saw him, Jesus. He stood before them, before us, not as an image painted by men, but as living glory wrapped in compassion. His eyes carried the depth of eternity, yet when he looked at each woman, it felt deeply personal, like he saw her story unfold from beginning to end. I fell to my knees trembling. He didn't speak immediately. He walked among the women, touching their shoulders one by one. Wherever his hand rested, I saw their tears change, from pain to peace, from regret to release. Then he turned toward us all and said, "One, you escaped their hands, but not the hatred." His voice echoed through the expanse, soft yet sharper than thunder. "You ran from their violence, their cruelty, their control," he said, "but you carried with you a seed of hatred, and that seed grew." I saw images of women, strong, brave, wounded, sitting alone in dimly lit rooms, whispering to themselves, "I'll never forgive him. I'll never forget." Their hearts burned with anger that looked righteous, but in this realm it glowed dark like smoke. Jesus continued, "You escaped their hands, but not the hatred. You left the cage, but took the chains with you. You thought freedom meant distance, but true freedom begins when love replaces vengeance." As he spoke, I felt something in my own heart crack open. I had said the same words. "I'll forgive someday, but not now." But here, someday didn't exist. Only truth did. Tears filled my eyes as Jesus looked directly at me. "Susana," he said gently, "you cannot heal by holding on to what hurt you. Hatred is a poison. It kills slowly, even after the pain is gone." The light around us pulsed softly, and I watched women begin to glow brighter as they whispered through tears, "Lord, I forgive." 2. I never condemned you for leaving danger, but I called you to forgive. The scene shifted. I saw women kneeling in prayer, begging God for forgiveness for leaving their abusive marriages. Some were told by others that they'd sinned. Some carried guilt so heavy it shadowed every prayer. Jesus lifted his hand, and his expression softened even more. "I never condemned you for fleeing danger," he said, "for I do not delight in your suffering. I came to set captives free, not to chain them in pain disguised as endurance." He paused, and his eyes filled with light. "But I called you to forgive, not to return to torment, but to release the bitterness that holds your soul." The words struck like healing fire. I felt the truth burn through every false teaching I'd ever heard. That staying meant holiness, that leaving meant failure. "Forgiveness," he said, "does not justify their sin. It justifies your healing." A woman near me fell to her knees, weeping uncontrollably. "Lord," she cried, "I thought you were angry I left." Jesus knelt beside her and lifted her chin. "Daughter, I wept when you were beaten. I saw every tear, every night you prayed for it to stop. I led you out so you could live, not so you could hate." The love in his voice shattered every wall in me. I remembered my nights, hiding bruises, pretending to smile, begging God for an answer. And now, standing before him, I finally heard it. "You were not wrong to leave. You were wrong to keep the pain. Your silence became your shield, but I wanted it to become your story." Suddenly, the vision shifted again. I saw women on earth, quiet, isolated, afraid to speak. They'd survived, but never told their stories. They feared judgment, gossip, or being called faithless. Jesus turned to us and said, "Your silence protected you once. It was a shield. But now your silence hides the testimony I placed in you. What the enemy used to destroy you, I wanted to use to deliver others." I watched as light poured from his hands into the women, and their mouths began to open, not in screams but in songs, in testimonies. Their pain became a river of healing that flowed into other broken souls. Jesus looked at me again. "Susana, the world doesn't need perfect stories. It needs honest ones. Tell them I was with every woman who ran for her life. Tell them I never abandoned them. I was in the storm, guiding them out." My tears wouldn't stop. I had buried my story for years, afraid of what people would say, afraid of being misunderstood. But here, in this place beyond judgment, I saw that every scar I hid was meant to become someone else's healing. As his words faded, I saw angels move among the women, touching their foreheads with radiant light. The atmosphere changed. The cries turned into worship. In that moment, I realized the purpose of this vision. Not condemnation, not fear, but freedom. I whispered, trembling, "Lord, what do you want me to do when I return?" And he answered simply, "Tell them what I told you. Tell them I was never the author of their pain. I am the finisher of their healing." The light grew brighter, and I felt myself being lifted, weightless, carried by peace that felt like home. I didn't know what awaited me on the other side, but I knew one thing for sure. The truth I'd seen here was never meant to stay hidden. The light that surrounded us began to soften, and I felt warmth returning to my being. Not the kind from the sun, but from love itself. Everything around shimmered like morning dew after a long night of storm. I looked at the women again. Their tears were no longer sorrowful. They now glowed like crystals, reflecting glory. But the Lord wasn't done speaking. His voice, though gentle, carried authority that even eternity seemed to listen to. He turned to us and said, "4. You prayed for love, but I needed to make you whole first." When Jesus said those words, something in the atmosphere trembled. It wasn't a rebuke. It was truth spoken with compassion. I saw flashes of women's hearts, shattered like glass. Some had run from one abusive man only to fall into the arms of another. Some prayed desperately, "Lord, send me a husband who will love me right." Jesus raised his hand, and their stories floated before us like living visions. We saw how they rushed to fill the emptiness that pain left behind, searching for validation that could only come from healing. He said, "Many prayed for love while still bleeding from wounds they never let me touch. You cannot hold new joy with broken hands. I wanted to make you whole first." His words pierced my heart. I remembered how I too had prayed, "God, send me someone who will make me feel safe again." But in that moment I realized where safety was not a person, it was his presence. Jesus looked directly at me and said, "Susana, I was not withholding love. I was preparing you to receive it. A healed woman does not seek love to feel worthy. She gives love because she already knows she is." Tears burned my eyes. Every disappointment, every lonely night suddenly made sense. What felt like delay was actually divine protection. 5. I never forgot the tears you cried in secret. The scene shifted again. The golden light dimmed, revealing glimpses of earthly nights. I saw bedrooms lit only by moonlight, where women knelt beside their beds whispering, "God, are you even there?" I saw myself, broken, clutching my pillow, afraid my children would hear me cry. Jesus stood beside each one of those women in their darkest hours. His robe glowed faintly, and as he moved, time unfolded. Every night, every tear, every silent prayer recorded in shimmering light. He said softly, "You thought no one saw you, but heaven heard every whisper." I never forgot the tears you cried in secret. Not one of them was wasted. Then he opened his palm, and in it, I saw tiny droplets of light, each representing a tear. As he breathed on them, they turned into flowers of pure gold. "These," he said, "became your worship. You didn't know it then, but every tear watered the faith that would one day grow into testimony." I fell to my knees again. All those nights I'd accused God of silence. He was actually building strength in me. Jesus knelt too, right beside me. "Susana," he said, "when they broke you, I wept with you. When they mocked your prayers, I interceded for you. Your tears were never ignored. They were answered in my timing." The love in his eyes was overwhelming, not pity, but honor, as though he saw every woman there not as a victim, but as a warrior who survived the storm and still carried a spark of faith. He lifted his hand toward the multitude. "Every tear they cried became a seed," he said, "and those seeds will bloom into freedom for generations after them." 6. You thought leaving meant I left too, but I walked beside you. At these words, a gentle wind swept through the field of light. Many women began to sob again, not in pain this time, but in relief. Jesus continued, "So many of you believed that leaving meant failure, that by walking away from destruction, you also walked away from me. But I tell you, I was never the abuser's voice. I was the whisper that said, 'Get out and live.'" He paused, looking across the sea of women. "You thought leaving meant I left too, but I walked beside you. I carried you through the fear, through the loneliness, through the judgment of others who never knew your pain." Suddenly, we began to see visions of those moments. Women running out of homes in the middle of the night, clutching their children, trembling. Angels followed behind them, invisible to human eyes, shielding them from unseen harm. I gasped as I saw my own memory. That rainy night I fled my husband's rage. I thought I was alone, but now I saw it. Two radiant beings walking beside me. One carrying my little boy, the other whispering courage into my spirit. Jesus turned to me again and said, "You were never abandoned, Susana. Every step you took in fear, I marked with mercy. I never left you. I led you." My lips trembled. "Lord," I whispered, "then why did it feel so silent? Why did you not stop the pain?" He placed his hand over his heart. "I did, not by stopping their choices, but by preserving your purpose. If I had forced their hearts to change, they'd have never faced their sin. But I gave you strength to rise beyond it, and that was greater deliverance." At those words, the entire realm seemed to glow brighter. Peace flowed like waves. The women began singing, a melody unlike any earthly tune, words that only heaven could understand. I felt my body tremble. as though something inside me was breaking free, the last remnants of fear, resentment, and guilt. Jesus stepped closer and said one last thing before the next vision opened. Every road you thought you walked alone was holy ground. Every night you thought I was silent, I was fighting for your soul. You are not the forsaken, you are the found. And as he said it, I saw my own journey play before me, like a story written by light. Not a tragedy, but a transformation. The abuse didn't define me. The pain didn't own me. His presence did. Then the angel who had stood silently beside me spoke. Susana, the next truths you hear will reveal what happens when pain is healed by purpose. Jesus looked at me once more and said, Are you ready to see what redemption really means? And before I could answer, the ground of glass beneath us began to open, revealing another realm filled with light, like the dawn after endless night. I took a deep breath. I didn't know what waited below, but my heart whispered, Yes, Lord, I'm ready. The moment Jesus spoke those words, Are you ready to see what redemption really means? The ground beneath us glowed like fire, refined in glass. The air changed. It felt heavier with presence, yet lighter in peace. I found myself standing on what looked like a vast corridor of mirrors. But when I looked closer, they weren't mirrors at all. They were windows into lives, stories of women who had walked the same path I once did. Pain, betrayal, escape, survival. I could see their memories unfolding. Some were young wives who endured years of torment, some mothers who stayed for their children, some who left and never looked back. The reflections were so real I could almost feel their heartbeat. Jesus walked beside me in silence, letting me watch. Every few steps, he stopped before one of the mirrors and whispered words that rippled through eternity. Then, he turned to me and spoke the next truth. 7. The scars on your heart were not punishment. They were proof you survived. When he said that, something inside me broke again. Not in pain, but in relief. I had always hated my scars, the emotional ones, the invisible ones, the way my trust became guarded, the way I hesitated to believe people's kindness. For years, I thought those scars were proof of my failure, a reminder that I wasn't strong enough to make my marriage work. But Jesus' eyes were filled with light when he said, No, Susana, your scars are not curses, they are crowns. They are proof that you went through the fire and came out still alive. As he spoke, the women in the corridor began to look at their own scars, faint marks across their glowing robes, symbols of pain they once hid. And as they looked, those scars began to shine like silver lines, beautiful, radiant, almost sacred. Jesus continued, In your world, people hide their scars because they think they make them unworthy. But in my kingdom, scars tell stories of grace. Every mark you carry is evidence that I brought you through what was meant to destroy you. Then I saw something miraculous. The women began to lift their hands, worshiping through tears. Their scars glowed brighter until they turned into light itself. And I heard Jesus say, What once marked you with shame will one day mark others with healing. He looked back at me. Susana, the pain didn't make you less holy. It made you more human. The lesson wasn't to avoid scars, but to let them become testimonies. You were not punished, you were preserved. His words fell like oil on my soul. I suddenly realized that survival was not weakness. It was divine evidence. Every woman who endured abuse and still dared to love, to breathe, to pray, she carried proof of heaven's endurance inside her. As we walked deeper into the corridor, the mirrors began to fade, replaced by vast fields of light. The air felt thick with peace, yet there was still more he wanted to reveal. He turned toward the horizon, where a soft, golden glow pulsed like a heartbeat. His tone became solemn, almost fatherly. Many of my daughters, he said, escaped their pain, but rushed to build new homes before their hearts healed. They mistook loneliness for readiness. They thought a new promise would erase old wounds. Then I felt the weight of his next words that silenced even the singing angels above. 8. Remarriage is not a shortcut to healing. It's a covenant that must be built on wholeness. The realm grew quiet, and every woman before him lifted her head to listen. Jesus' expression was filled with love, not condemnation. He said, I do not despise remarriage, but I desire that it be born from restoration, not reaction. Too many join new unions with hearts still bleeding from the old, and when the pain reappeared, they thought they were cursed again. He paused, letting the truth sink in. Remarriage is not punishment, but covenant, and covenant is not built on pain. It's built on peace. As he spoke, I saw a vision of two hearts, one whole, one broken, trying to join together. The broken one leaked light, dimming the other. But when the broken heart was first healed by his touch, and then brought into union, both hearts began to glow brighter, united by divine light. Jesus said, before you say, I do again, say, I am healed, because no one can pour love from an empty vessel. Tears ran down my face as I whispered, Lord, so many of us remarried trying to escape loneliness, not realizing we were still broken. He nodded gently. Yes, daughter, but even those mistakes can become mercy when surrendered. My forgiveness is not limited by your choices. I can still make broken covenants whole, but it must begin with surrender. I saw scenes of women praying with their second husbands, asking for renewal, for restoration, for peace. Jesus smiled as light descended upon them, mending what years of bitterness had torn apart. Then he turned back to me and said something that burned deep into my heart. A healed woman loves differently. She loves without fear, without control, without need to prove her worth. That is the love I designed for covenant, not the kind built from fear of being alone. The words echoed like thunder wrapped in grace. I could feel chains breaking, not physical ones, but the kind made of shame and regret. Jesus looked around at all of us and said, do not rush to rebuild what I am still healing. A delay is not denial, it's divine timing. I bowed my head, realizing how many times I tried to rush my own healing, to fill my loneliness with something visible instead of letting him fill it with himself. At that moment, the ground began to glow again, like the closing of a divine chapter. The angel who had been silent all this time stepped forward and said, these truths are not judgments, they are invitations. Every revelation you've seen is a call to freedom. Jesus smiled and looked directly into my eyes, his voice tender but firm. Susana, when you return to the world, tell my daughters, I am not angry with them. I am healing them. Tell them that love, when built on my foundation, will never destroy. It will restore. As he spoke, his robe shimmered like morning light breaking through a long night. Then he stretched out his hand toward me. Come, he said, there are still more truths you must see. What you learn next will free those who are still trapped in bitterness and fear. The ground beneath us began to lift again, and I felt myself ascending through layers of light and wind. My heart raced. I didn't know what awaited next, but I could feel it. The next words he would speak would pierce deeper than any before. I whispered, I'm ready, Lord, and he answered softly, then let your heart see what your eyes never could. The light swallowed everything. The light was so bright that for a moment, I thought I had entered another world entirely. Every sound was music. Every breath felt like peace itself. But I could sense this was the last stage of my encounter. The moment when Jesus would tell me the most difficult truths, the ones my soul had been running from all along. He turned toward me slowly, his robe glowing like the sun resting on still waters. His eyes, oh, his eyes. They carried all the love in existence. Yet within them was also the weight of eternity. 9. Forgive not because they deserve peace, but because you deserve freedom. When Jesus said that, I felt my entire being tremble. The word forgive was like a sword cutting through years of bitterness. I looked down, and in the light beneath us, I saw visions of faces, men who had wounded women, faces of abusers, betrayers, those who had mocked, cursed, and crushed tender hearts. And I saw women, broken, crying, praying for God to punish them, to show justice, to avenge their pain. My heart sank. I had been one of them. I whispered, Lord, how can they forgive after what they've been through? Jesus looked at me, and his expression softened with infinite understanding. "Susana," he said, "forgiveness does not excuse what they did. It releases what it's doing to you." He raised his hand, and instantly the images shifted. I saw chains around women's hearts, invisible, heavy, yet glowing red from anger and resentment. And as they forgave one by one, those chains began to fall off. He said, "Forgiveness is not saying it was okay. It is saying it will no longer own me. When you forgive, you don't make your abuser right. You make your heart free." Tears streamed down my face. For years I thought forgiveness was weakness, that it meant letting evil win. But Jesus whispered again, "The enemy wants you to stay angry because he knows bitterness delays healing. But when you release them, you make room for me to restore you." Then he turned to me and said words that melted every wall in my soul. "You cannot carry both the cross and your grudges. One must fall for the other to rise." I fell to my knees, sobbing. Every memory of pain began to play in my mind. The shouting, the fear, the loneliness. And for the first time I said out loud, "I forgive him, Lord. I release him." The moment I did, a warmth like liquid light poured through my chest. It felt as though heaven itself had entered my heart. The anger, the bitterness, the heaviness, all vanished. And then Jesus smiled and said, "Now you are finally light enough to fly." When I rose to my feet, I realized we were no longer standing in the same place. The corridor of mirrors was gone. The glowing fields were gone. Now we were at what looked like a massive gate made of living light. It pulsed as if it were breathing. Jesus turned to me again, his expression both gentle and firm. "Your value was never defined by who hurt you. It was sealed by who created you." He stretched his hand toward the gate, and it opened slowly. Behind it was something indescribable. Waves of colors I'd never seen, sounds that weren't music, but worship itself. Then he said, "Susana, this is where truth begins." He showed me the faces of countless women, some still alive, some long gone, all radiant, all free. And he said, "Every woman who walks through the valley of abuse believes she is broken beyond repair. But I tell you, I never abandoned her. I was there in every tear, in every silent night, in every heartbeat that whispered, 'I can't go on.'" He touched my forehead, and instantly I could feel his words. It was as if every cell in my body began to understand that I had always been loved, even in the darkest hours. Jesus continued, "The devil attacked your worth because he knew your calling. He made you question your beauty, your value, your strength, because he feared what a healed woman could become." Then he looked directly into my eyes and said words that pierced through eternity itself. "A healed woman is dangerous. She births peace where there was pain. She rebuilds homes the enemy tried to destroy. She raises children that carry light. And she teaches other women how to walk through fire without burning." I stood there trembling. My hands glowed faintly, and I saw light flowing through them like rivers. I asked, "Lord, what do you want me to do with this?" He smiled softly. "Tell them. Tell my daughters they are not abandoned. Tell them they are not ruined. Tell them that I still have plans for their lives. Plans to heal, to restore, to bless." As he spoke, I saw thousands of doors appear in the distance, each leading to a different woman's life. And upon every door, a name: Grace, Hope, Faith, Esther, Comfort, you. Jesus said, "Go back, Susan. Your voice will be my reminder to them that even the broken can speak beauty again." The wind began to swirl around me, and light pulled me upward again. I felt myself falling backward through time, through clouds, through fire, through silence, until suddenly everything went black. I heard voices around me, someone crying, someone shouting, "She's breathing!" And then, a gasp, my own gasp. I was alive again. When I opened my eyes, I was in a hospital bed, my head wrapped, my body weak. But my spirit felt untouchable. I whispered the last words Jesus said to me before I left heaven's gate. "Tell them, I never condemned them. I came to heal them." My dear sisters, if you are listening to my voice right now, and you've walked through pain that words can't describe, I want you to know you are not forgotten. Maybe you cried yourself to sleep night after night. begging God to change someone who refused to be changed. Maybe you stayed because you thought leaving made you a failure. Or maybe you left, but your heart still feels chained to the past. I understand. I was there too. But hear me, God is not angry with you. He is not ashamed of your scars. He is not turning his face away from your story. Every tear you cried was counted. Every prayer you whispered was heard. If you are still in a place of pain, I pray right now that the peace of Jesus Christ will cover you. May his love enter every wounded place in your soul. May he silence the lies that tell you you're unworthy of love. May he remind you that your value is not defined by who hurt you, but by the one who made you. If you're in an abusive marriage and you fear for your safety, I pray that God gives you courage and clarity to seek help, to reach out, and to walk in wisdom. Remember, God's love never demands you stay where your life is in danger. His will is not for you to be destroyed, but to be healed, to live, and to walk in peace. And for those who have already walked away, may the Lord restore your heart. May he give you strength to forgive, grace to rebuild, and hope to love again, not in fear, but in freedom. Let us pray. Lord Jesus, you see every woman listening right now. You know her pain, her fear, her memories. I ask you to wrap her in your arms tonight. Heal what years of hurt have broken. Remind her she is still precious, still chosen, still yours. Turn her scars into light. Turn her tears into strength. And let your peace guard her heart and home forever. In Jesus' name, amen. You are not alone, my sister. You are deeply loved, and your story is not over yet.